Welcome back to the channel, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you guys step by step how to make this text simulation. Well, it's not really text, but we're going to be spelling something with these little spheres, like these little marbles that fall into some jars. And it's actually a lot simpler than you think. This is a very beginner friendly tutorial. So I'm going to go through the whole process, and you can see here this is what it looks like. It's actually very fun. I enjoyed making this one. And hopefully it's something you guys can follow along with and enjoy. So you can write whatever you want. By the way, I just did fun as a simple 3-letter word. It'd be interesting to see what you guys can do with it. Maybe make more jars, push your computer to its limits if you want, but this is something cool. And there's probably some ways you could optimize this. I was thinking about the fact that you could only maybe fill the jars halfway towards the front. There'd be ways you could do that. But hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I will be uploading my original to Patreon. So let's jump into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Okay, so let's go ahead and select all the default objects. We're going to press delete. We're going to go Shift A. Let's go to our mesh options and let's add in a cylinder. So we're going to tab into edit mode now with our cylinder here active. We're going to go G, Z, and I'm going to hold in my middle or control button. If you hold in the control, once you make a movement, you can snap, and let's snap it right to the top here of we can see this kind of red axis line. That's our floor. So now we have the beginnings of a jar. So let's turn it into something a little bit more jar looking. So we're going to press Z and go into wireframe, and let's select these top verts. We're going to go G, Z, and move them up. And now for me anyway, I'd like a jar that's about this tall. So I'm going to go something like this. And we're going to go and enable edge select, and we're going to hold in Shift and Alt and left click on this edge over here to select it as well. So they're both active. We're going to go Control B to bevel, and let's bevel about this much, and we're going to roll the middle mouse button about 2 or 3 times just to add in some segments like so. Now we're going to go to our face select option. We're going to select the top face, E to extrude and Z to extrude it up like so. And then we're going to go E to extrude, we're going to extrude it up, S to scale to make a lip, and let's go X and delete that face. I'm going to go to my edge select, and now you can go Shift Alt left click here and left click here, Control B or Command B just to bevel. Now we have some better looking topology here. We're going to come here, Control R's, roll in some loops, and then double click. I'm going to tab back out, and in fact, let's just do one more thing. Let's just tab back in quickly, select everything. Let's click on the smooth tool here, and let's just drag that little gizmo, and let's just smooth things out a little bit. Now we're going to tab back out. Now let's give this a solidify modifier, and let's come over here. Let's crank up this thickness. I'm going to take it in, depending on the direction of your normals here. This is going to vary, but I'm going to go into the negatives here in my case, so it goes out like that, just leaving me with a bit more volume in the jar. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to go here and give it a subdivision surface modifier. And yeah, you can see here at the bottom we have some weird topology because it's a non-quad. I might just select this face here and go E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude again, just to neaten it up a bit. It's still a non-quad in the middle, but at least it just looks a little bit better like this. Okay, so I'm going to right click and go shade smooth, and you can see over here, and because of the operation we did with the solidify, some of these have overlapped a little bit. I'm just going to disable the subdivision surface modifier. I'm just going to quickly go Shift Alt and just left click on this edge. I'm going to go X and just dissolve edge. And you guys may not have the same problem, but I'm going to do that since that's the issue I ran into here. But now that's looking okay. I'm going to tab back out, and let's go to our front view, and let's go Shift A. Let's add in a icosphere. We're going with something like this because we don't want something too high in the topology, especially since we're dealing with so many. Then we're going to go S to scale it down, and we're going to go G to move it up. Now keep in mind, the more you want to write something in the text, you want to definitely go a little bit smaller so you have more pixels, so to speak. Look at these as pixels, if you will. So we're going to go something like this. I'm going to go Control A and apply that scale. Very important when we're dealing with physics. Then we're going to go Shift D, X. I'm going to move it along the X till it's next to it. Shift R to repeat that action. Let's go with about this many times. Select all of them, then go to your top. G, Y, and move them here. Make sure they don't overlap the lid of the jar. And then we go Shift D, Y and move them up, and then Shift R to repeat that action. Once again, we don't want any overlap. So anywhere where they're close to the edge of the jar, just delete them. So I'm going to select these ones here, maybe. Something like that. I'll go into my front view. Just have a bunch of them that are over the mouth of the jar, but not overlapping. Okay, so now we have that. We're going to right click and go Shade Smooth. So we're going to go Shift D, Z with those selected, move it up to duplicate. Then we're going to go Shift R to repeat that action. And let's just go way more than we actually need. We can always delete as we're running the simulation just to get to the right volume. So I'm going to go over about this much. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. And then holding in Shift, I'm just going to select one of them. That's going to be the active element. I'm going to go to my physics and just give it a rigid body. I'm going to leave the type as active, but under the shape, we're going to change it to sphere. So the mesh would be more accurate, but this approximate of the sphere would be a lot more efficient. In this case, it'll really work well. So we're going to go with the sphere. And yeah, it's all about what we need to do there for now. Then we're going to go F3. I'm going to type in copy from, and then go copy from active. And now all of these are going to share that. So now let's just select our jar. Let's go to rigid body. Let's make it passive. And in this case, we want to make it mesh. That's really important. And make sure you are on frame 1 and then hit the spacebar. And now your simulation is going to run. So for me, I'm going to just go Z, go rendered. And then I can see in this case, the jar is filled up all the way to the top. Now, if you go back to frame 1, in your case, if this didn't work, you can just select the top view, duplicate to make more, or delete to get rid. So I might just get rid of one row and then run it again. And to me, I think that looks a lot more appropriate. I think that's just the right amount for me. So that's how you're going to get that amount right. So once you have that in place, you're going to go to frame 1, and we're going to select everything. We're going to go Shift DX and move one over to the side. Shift DX, move another one over to the side, like so. And for this to work, we also need to cache things. So we're going to come here to our end frame value for now, make it 100. And that's what I'm going to be dealing with my frames. You can make it less or more. That's just the length of our animation. But the important thing here is to go to our scene properties, and under the rigid body world, we're going to come down here to the cache, and we're going to come here to the simulation start, leave that at 1, but the end value, we're going to make 100. And the reason for that is because we're working with 100 frames here, and we want our simulation to be the same length as our animation. And now for this to be baked into our scene, we're going to come here and click on bake, and now it's going to bake it into our scene. Now, depending on what computer you're running, this can take a little bit of time, but it should still be faster than most types of simulation. So even on a mid-range laptop, this might just take a few minutes. So just be patient and it should be okay. Hopefully it doesn't crash. And I should have really actually saved this before we jumped into it. So make sure to save before you ever run a simulation. So yeah, I can't believe I forgot that bit. So I'm just gonna let this finish. And here we have, it's now finished, only took a minute. And if I now run this place, hit the spacebar, you can see the simulation ran. So to make things easier for now, we're going to select these 3 jars. We're going to press M, new collection, let's just call it jars. Go OK. So up here now we have our main collection of all of our icospheres. Then we have the jar layer. So we're going to just hide the jars for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag this all the way through till we come to a point where they're nicely settled. And let's come, and now we're going to actually just press A to select all of these. Holding and Shift, select one of them to make them active, and go to your materials, click new, and then go down here, and in the viewport display for now, just so we can see, let's change it to something like blue. Control L and then link the materials. Now all of these other ones have that same one. We can always change the material to whatever, the base color to whatever we want later. This is just so we can see what we're doing. And then we're going to come here, and you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to go with a 3-letter word like fun. So I'm just going to hold in Shift, and I'm going to roughly, as best as I can, try and select these in a way that makes it an F. And remember I said earlier, the smaller these balls are going to be, the more of them there are. Obviously, the more pixels you're going to have. So I'm just going to go something like this. I'm going to try and make a U over here. And obviously this is not going to be exactly the same for you guys because a simulation is going to be running a little bit different depending on how exactly you place things. So now we have a U, and I'm going to go here with an N. So let's see what I can do. Trying to make an N here. I'm going to go up to here. And like I said, this does not have to be whatever I'm doing. I'm just doing this as a 3-letter word. I'm sure you guys can take the time to come up with something a little bit more exciting than that. So I'm going to go with that. Don't worry too much, you can always change it. Then holding and shift, select one of them to make them active, and then get rid of that material. Click new, plus to make a new material. Go down and let's make it red so we can see it. Control L and then link that material. Now all of them have it. So now what's really cool, if we go to frame 1, you can see these ones all just randomly embedded in here. But if we hit the spacebar, look at that. They all just so happen to end up where they need to be. And so we've made a spelling simulation. So now we're going to go Alt, or actually let's just bring back our jars. Now we're going to go Shift A. Let's just add in a plane. S to scale that guy nice and big. G, Y, and move it back. S, X. Tab into edit mode, and let's just select this back edge and move it up. And let's just go Control B to bevel it. And let's tab back out, right click and go Shade Smooth. And I'm just going to go Control A and apply to scale. So now let's go into our shading workspace. Let's go into our front view, Shift A, let's add in a camera. And you guys have seen me do cameras a lot of times, so I'm just going to place my camera here. You can press 0 on your camera, on your numpad to go to camera view. And now I'm going to go to my renderer. I'm going to make it cycles. If you have a GPU, make sure to use it. And then under the renderer, let's just make it, I'm going to go with something really low because that's just a tutorial. And now we're going to go Z and we're going to go rendered. And a little tip, if you go Control B, you can drag over your camera and it limits it to the render in your camera. So now let's go Shift A. Let's add in an area light. G, Z, move it up. I'm going to increase the strength to 300. And I'm going to scale it up along the X, like so. Then I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate it, rotate it in. And then I'm going to increase the strength of this one to 700. And I'm going to go to my camera view. And another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my world settings. I'm going to go to the color tab here and just go sky texture. And then make the strength 0.5. Now you could also use a HDRI, which I did in my original, which works a lot better. But just for now, let's just keep it there. And let's now select the jar. Let's go new. And I'm just going to go into solid for now. And let's just come here and increase the transmission all the way up to 1 and bring that roughness down to almost 0. And now let's select these two and holding and shift select that glass, Control L and link that material. Now if we go Z and we go rendered, we can see that's what we have. I might bring that roughness even more down. Let's select the background, let's go new, and let's just drag this base color and type in checker and go checker texture. And let's increase the strength or the scale to 12. Let's press Z and let's go rendered. Okay, so now we have that. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select one of these glasses. Well, in fact, let's just come up here to our layers and just hide that glass layer or collection. And let's just select one of these spheres. So I'm going to select the blue one and I'm going to come here to the base color and make it nice and bright blue. And I'm going to select one of the red ones and in the base color, I'm going to make it red. Now I'm going to bring back that jars. I'm going to make sure to save somewhere. I'm going to go jars, test, save Blender file. And now I'm going to go render. In fact, let's just do one more thing. Let's just, because when you're running the simulation, you're going to want to see the motion blur. So under your render, just enable motion blur. And even for your camera, you can select that and go to your camera settings, enable depth of field and select a jar, and then bring that f-stop value down a bit. So now you have a nice soft focus in the background. Okay, so that's looking better. So now I'm going to go Control S to save, render and render image, and let's see this. And there we have it. Now obviously a better HDRI and lighting will make this look more realistic, but this is it. And now what you can do is you can select under your output settings, you can go under your output, select somewhere on your computer, and then you can choose whatever format. I like to go video, and then go to the encoding and just make it an MP4 under the container. Now, if you're going to do a really big processor intensive render, you probably want to go with PNGs and then render them out individually just in case you get a crash. But in this case, because it's a short animation and it doesn't take that long to render, I'm happy with rendering directly into video format. And I'm also not going to be compositing the sequences or anything like that. But it's completely up to you what you're going to do. Now, I would go render and then render animation, but in your case, you're going to do that, but I've already done that. So here's my original, exact same thing. I've actually just added these little loops here around a jar. That's optional, but I think it just adds a little something cool to it. And this is the exact same thing. Everything I've showed you to do right now is exactly what I did in my original. And this is the one I'll be uploading to my Patreon. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you guys next time for another one.